Hi, welcome to She Does Tech. I am Rachel Curran, and I'm here accompanied by Alyssa Morel and Sarah Kinsey, and we are so excited to introduce She Does Tech. Our goal is to share the stories, the career stories of women, especially those who are in those roles where women are underrepresented in tech. I was at RSA just maybe 4 weeks ago now, and I remember walking out. They had a little break, and I walked out, and there is a line of men around the block trying to wait for a restroom, and I just got to walk right in. And that was something that really stood out to me. We are definitely underrepresented in the cybersecurity world, as I think most people are aware of. It's fun to see more women are starting to join in the industry. But we definitely want to highlight there's a ton of different roles, a lot of different opportunities and different ways to get there. I did not study computer science, and I also did not grow up in tech. And I pivoted, and I'll talk about that later. But I'm going to hand it off to Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sarah Kinsey. I have had about 20 years of a career in marketing, and I am excited about this project because Rachel, you called me, I don't know how long ago now, a few weeks, a month maybe ago, and told me about this idea. And what I loved about it so much is that I really think there's something to be said with the idea that you don't know how to visualize yourself in a role unless you see somebody like you in that role. Rachel, when you called me to tell me about this project, it was the day after I had just been to an event for my company, and my company is in the revenue technology space. And I had just come from a RevOps event, and there was a speaker there who said, nobody here in this room comes out of school to go into revenue operations because the role itself is not that old. That most people in leadership positions in revenue operations had a winding path of a career to even get here. And I had been thinking about that, not from the standpoint of women in RevOps, but just how interesting that there are roles in tech today where you don't go to school for them. And then, Rachel, when you called me and had this idea, I thought this is so cool because I want to know more about how people get into revenue operations. And I had happened to meet a couple women there. So I'm really excited to talk to them too as a part of this project. Really fun. So, Alyssa, I'll hand it to you next.
My name's Alyssa Morel, and I do human resources. Currently, I am at a tech company. I've been here for the past 3 years. I've been in HR for almost 10 years, I'd say. And it has been really eye-opening entering the tech world, just seeing, the difference in gender ratios when it comes to applicants, when it comes to, the different levels of the organizations that I encounter day to day. And I'm really thrilled because my organization is very progressive and is really into promoting women on their journeys through tech and helping people grow. But it's such a passion of mine, really, and I'm so glad that I can explore that. And so, Rachel, when you came to me and said, I've got this idea, I felt so right about it. I just knew there were so many stories to be told. And Sarah, like you said, if I think you were paraphrasing Rachel, but if you don't see yourself in the role, how do you ever think you could even find the path, you know?
Thank you both so much for sharing why you're here. And Alyssa, that was awesome. I want to shift over to our career path. Sarah, you've had a very direct career path.
So my career path did start, my first marketing job was a marketing coordinator at a small startup company. And I had the amazing good fortune of having a manager. His name was Bruce, and he taught me so much about marketing and business and how to be a strategic thinker. It's because of him that I always laugh at the idea that people say, marketing is all about the t-shirts. Like, I hate the whole t-shirt thing with marketing. That's a different side story. Anyway, so working with Bruce for 4 years at that startup company taught me a lot because as a result of it being a startup, I had the opportunity to do every single kind of marketing possible because the marketing team was tiny. So if we wanted to do, it was a long time ago, so there wasn't as much tech marketing available, but if we wanted to do email marketing, I had to figure it out. If we wanted to do direct mail marketing, I had to figure it out. So I had the good fortune as a marketing coordinator to be at a place where there was so many opportunities and with a mentor. It's not something that everybody can get, but if you can get it, hold on to it for as long as you can. It's really wonderful. From there, I continued to just explore different industries, different kinds of marketing, and make my way up to kind of up the marketing ladder in a somewhat traditional way. And here I am today, with what I now know to be my sweet spot, my passion, which is I want to be the marketing leader at B2B SaaS companies. What wasn't typical about it is I didn't know what I wanted to do really. I just knew that marketing looked like fun. And I didn't even really know what that meant because marketing is, oh, you can't see my hands. Marketing is this big. And I didn't even know that at the time. I didn't know how broad marketing was. And it took me years to learn what part of marketing do I love? What part of it is am I actually good at? You can't know that until you have opportunity and experience.
You just described how you didn't know that this is where you wanted to be
Yeah.
when you started. And yes, it's been a direct path, but that direct path almost can't be when you don't know where it is that you're heading to. It
Yeah.
happened to play out that way. But you've
Yeah.
stayed in this, like, what's the next thing? And it ended up being sort of the next rung on the ladder. And I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting. So
This isn't a thing I have actually become passionate about my entire career. I have never had a 3 or a 5 year plan. I wouldn't have been able to say 10 years ago that my goal was to be a VP of marketing for a B2B SaaS startup company. Never would I have been able to say that. What I could say all along the way is I don't want to be bored. I don't want to be doing the same thing in 18 months that I'm doing today. So for me, I felt like I was inadequate because I didn't have that 5 year goal or that 3 year goal, even. I couldn't even answer that question. And I felt like it might go into the category of women don't know how to ask for what they want and what they need. And it wasn't that. It was just, I didn't know. I just wanted to keep growing. I wanted to learn more. I did want more responsibility, so I did care about growing my title. I wanted to make more money, and I did care about my salary increasing, my salary band growing. I did care about all that. But it didn't mean that I ever had a 5 year plan that I needed to achieve by X date. Um, and so, yeah, even though I have had maybe more of a traditional marketing career growth path, it is not because I started it saying, I want that.
you recently, Alyssa, moved over, as you mentioned, into the tech world, but you've been doing HR a long time. How did you end up where you are?
Great question. Yeah, I actually kind of fell into HR. I was a little directionless after university and ended up working at this kind of a scrappy startup mentality. They didn't have an HR department, and I took one course, then I took another, and then I said, "Hey, you guys need HR. Maybe in 6 months I could start after I've had some more classes." And they said to me, I kind of had a plan for them and an outline of what I thought we could implement. And they said, yes, you start tomorrow. And so from there, I had another role where I was able to do the same. I came into a nonprofit, built up the HR from the ground up, built programs in response to that. And then I was able to come to OnActuate. They still needed that dedicated HR. And I was so happy to be able to do that in the tech world. And it's been almost 3 years now. And yeah, just really eye-opening about, every industry does have its own unique challenges, but the challenges in tech are so related to gender. And I'm so happy that we're able to kind of dive into those.
I love what you just said. You mentioned early on, like getting into the role that you're in, you came in with a plan. And I think that's something really interesting to touch on. You guys have both had fairly direct paths, but out of I saw a problem and I wanted to fix it, and you came in with plans, or took on tackling a problem. And I think that's a huge part of growing into leadership, going for what you want, whether that's a life plan or it's what you want right here in front of you, but being willing to present that because that's not everyone would do that. What you
I
just
love
said.
that. I love that perspective on it. I'm driven by problems, by solving problems. I've always been that way. And sometimes the bigger the problem, the more excited I get. So yeah, I like that you framed it that way. That's definitely my driver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe to use a very common tech phrase now is it is having that bias for action. It doesn't mean that you have a plan, but it's recognizing here's something that I can do. I'm not going to wait around for somebody to tell me to do it. I'm going to either go do it. It's been key for me in every single role from the earliest, most junior IC role I was ever in to my role today.
In my experience, I mentioned that I've had this winding path. I really studied international politics. I ran a bakery while I was going to college. My first CTO was definitely, I mean, kind of like your experience, Sarah, having that mentor, just somebody so smart and willing to teach and love to nerd out on tech. So if I would sit and learn, I would literally fall asleep sitting on a couch next to him while he was still teaching, like in the middle of the night. And so it was a really awesome experience as I've grown, in my career, getting into the compliance side. Like we got told we need to have a SOC audit. Nobody in the company knew what it was. So I had to go figure it out. And that ended up being something that I've consulted and helped a lot of companies get their SOC audits. But it's finding those problems and being willing to just step up to the plate and get to a solution. I think it's been really helpful and also leads you somewhere. I think all three of us love our jobs. And I think
Mhm.
that probably comes
do,
because
yeah.
we're solving the problems we want to solve, right? You don't jump in on the SOC audit if you don't kind of dig that.
Yeah. Well, something I think that is super interesting too is this isn't wild to say this, but just how different people can be attracted to different things and how there really is something for everyone. Like Rachel, the most boring thing I can think of is figuring out a sock audit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so happy for you that you love it because the world needs people like you. And I love you. I think you're so fun. But boy, your job doesn't sound interesting to me. But I think it's so cool that there are just like there is a place for anyone, I think, in tech if you have grit, if you have bias for action, if you I don't know, like there really is a place for anyone here. You just got to find what problem interests you and then go learn about it and solve it.
And on top, to add to that, I think that there is so much need for women in tech. It's not just that we need to create space or allow, it's like we need these perspectives. We need these life experiences. And it's so funny. You hear about the designers of the crash test dummies and they design them after a
Yeah.
man. And it's like it's so vital to have women in that room to think of those perspectives, right? And I see the same need in tech. And maybe we don't know what the crash test dummy is yet in tech, but to have the female perspective there, to have women who are contributing and giving their ideas, like
Yeah.
it can be that vital.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also super interesting to, especially for people who are early in their careers and are trying to find what they love. If you don't actually know what a job is, it's easy to think you wouldn't like it, but you never really know, which is not the purpose of our conversation here, but I don't know. I think it's worth saying.
Well, kind of though, right? If somebody's younger in their career and not sure, I mean, all three of us talk
Sure.
about not being totally sure what we wanted in the beginning. Go try it. Oh,
Yeah,
like what happens? You hate it, move on. Right? Like
exactly. Well,
there's
that's what I did for my first job.
right.
Yeah, and Sarah, to the point, your point about people not really understanding what a job is all about, how many of us can really explain what our friends really do? And I think that's something that we'll be able to dive in a little bit with people that we have as guests. Like,
Yeah.
really, what do you do? Really, what does it look like? And what does it achieve? And what's interesting? So,
Yeah.
I think
Great.
just pulling back the curtain on that's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Definitely. Actually, that reminds so when you told your story, Sarah, one thing you mentioned is like you moved into account-based marketing, ABM. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm like, what the heck does that mean?
You know what? There are entire podcasts, not episodes, but podcasts dedicated to that entire topic. So I'll tell you about it later. I don't think it'd be interesting here and now. It's
That's fair.
people love to hate it and love to love it. So I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think this podcast will be about, right, though? So we
Yeah.
go or this Zoomcast, what do we wanna call it?
Yeah.
But it'll be about telling those stories and deep diving a little bit so you do know, like, why is it that somebody who's detail oriented is great in compliance? Or what is this account-based marketing and would I dig it?
Yeah.
That's the opportunity of diving into those stories, right? Um, so I'm excited. I'm excited about this.
Oh, me too.
All right, thanks, ladies.